After 45 years, the United States spends more money on education by far than any other country, and spends likewise by far more money per pupil than any country, and it's not even close. But yet we rank near the bottom of the list in terms of success. But we're going to be returning education very simply back. Despite these breathtaking failures, the department's discretionary budget has exploded by 600% in a very short period of time, and it employs bureaucrats in buildings all over Washington, D.C. And as a former real estate person, I will tell you, I ride through the streets of Washington and it says Department of Education, Department of Education. I said, how do you fill those buildings? It's crazy what's happened over the years. Denmark, Sweden, and those top, Finland, those top countries that. But we're going to be returning education very simply back to the states where it belongs, and this is a very popular thing to do, but much more importantly, it's a common sense thing to do, and it's going to work. Absolutely, it's going to work. And Democrats and others that we have employed we're going to love and cherish our teachers along with our children, and they're going to work with the parents, and they're going to work with everybody else, and it's going to be an amazing thing to watch, and it's really going to be something special. And I said, how do you fill those buildings? It's crazy what's happened over the years. But beyond these core necessities, my administration will take all lawful steps to shut down the department. We're going to shut it down and shut it down as quickly as possible. It's doing us no good. We want to return our students to the states where just some of the governors here are so happy about this. They want education to come back to them, to come back to the states, and they're going to do a phenomenal job. Should I do this? Do it? I think so. We have pens for you too, special pens. I'll take this one. I had one pen.
Ms. McMahon,
Chairman Cassidy, yes, I'd like to introduce my daughter, Stephanie McMahon, Paul Levesque, her husband, and my son, Shane McMahon. I'm so happy to have them here, and many friends have come from far places, so I welcome having them here today and appreciate that they're here. So, thank you, Chairman Cassidy, Ranking Member Sanders, and distinguished members of the committee. I'm honored to have your consideration to serve as the Secretary of the Department of Education.
You're getting busy today. That was something, wasn't it?
Acceptance. Creative. To remove funding is very intentional, and it will absolutely disproportionately affect students of color and other minorities. Journal. It's very much reminiscent of Brown v. Board of Education, and it's very reminiscent of separate but equal. But we all know that that's not really the case, because those who have access to more finances absolutely will put their students in schools that have more finances and more resources, and that they will actively be able to pour into. And so if that's the case, then what happens to the students who don't have those kind of financial resources? Where do they get their education from? Is it subpar? And then you have to be intentional about taking care of yourself.
Our 2 was about to be 3 in July, and then I have she's
as life skills. For many of my students, there's already a feeling that nobody cares about me, that I'm responsible for myself. Like, nobody gives a beep about me. And I think that this very much would affirm that for them. I think that it also would cause them to say, well, why is it that I am not important enough just because I happen to be brown, just because I happen to be a minority, just because I happen to be low income? Why should I have less than because of choices that other people made? Kids who are from families that are low income, the children did not choose to be low income.
Whichever one makes you happy. I'm dope, baby. The sounds are different.
For the wrong reason.
It's not a good.
Bottom of the press release. Yes.
The Department of Education was formed under President Jimmy Carter. President Carter was a product of Georgia public schools. So he clearly understood the importance of public schools. The people making these decisions are not the products of public schools, and they do not understand the importance of public schools and public education for all of our students. 16%, one of every $6 of public came from federal sources. And then it has, when we scroll down, when you eliminate the Department of Education, you can say you're transferring it to somebody else, but the reality is somebody else doesn't have the skills and the expertise to administer those funds. And there will be things falling through the cracks. We know that's going to happen. I mean, this map, when I looked at this map, it's like you see the lighter colors, here. $7,700 per student in federal funding, and that's 38 points. So that guardrail to ensure that we are fulfilling the promise that every single child has the right to a free and appropriate public education, that guardrail is gone, and it is always going to be concerning that that's missing.
Click on anything. Children. Everybody says they want to support children. They have a right to life, but what happens after they're born? They have to be educated. And if you're cutting the Department of Education, whose sole purpose is to provide a quality education for all of Americans, but particularly those that are in public schools, I think this is ill-fated and will be very detrimental to this state and the United States.
This, what do you think letter is that? The letter
W.
So a regular W, like a printed one, looks like this. But in cursive, everything's a little more, it's not at the top, because it's going to connect to another letter. Go ahead and practice whatever page you're on. Some of you are on a different page. If you are doing it on your lap, I would prefer that you do it. And then just do it really light.
the inequity will grow because people of wealth and means will simply send their children to private schools. They will get the quality education and the resources necessary to educate a child, but then everyone else will be left behind. And I don't think that in 2025 is where we want to go. We want to make sure that every child has an opportunity to grow and become a productive adult. And if we don't fund the educational system, then we're only going to have to put more funding in the criminal justice system and other social safety nets because of the lack of investment in education.
And it sounds strange, doesn't it? Department of Education, we're going to eliminate it.
U.S. President Donald Trump moved to eliminate the Department of Education. But he can't shutter the agency without congressional legislation, and his administration is already facing legal challenges. Here's a look at what's at stake. Trump has repeatedly called for eliminating the Department of Education, calling it a big con job.
But we're going to be returning education very simply back to the states.
Republicans have been critical of the department, particularly over student loan forgiveness and policies related to diversity, equity, and inclusion programs.
Keep critical race theory and transgender insanity the hell out of our schools.
Some conservatives have also denounced curricula they see as too liberal or excessively focused on America's history of racial discrimination. Trump's executive order to shut down the agency mandates that any programs receiving remaining DOE funds should not advance DEI or gender ideology. The department oversees some 100,000 public schools and 34,000 private schools in the United States. Even though the bulk of public school funding comes from state and local governments, an immediate closure of the department could disrupt tens of billions of dollars in aid to K-12 schools and tuition assistance for lower-income college students. The department provides federal grants for needy schools and programs, including money to pay teachers of children with special needs, fund arts programs, and replace outdated infrastructure.
Just like that. Awesome.
It evaluates public and private schools for the quality of their curricula and whether they are following guidelines intended to ensure all children in the U.S. get equal access to education. It also enforces civil rights laws in schools. In 2024, Congress appropriated $79 billion to the department for discretionary programs, ones that educate homeless kids, provide arts education, and support a national center for the deaf and blind, among other things.
With your eraser.
Defenders say the DOE is crucial to keeping public education standards high and accuse Republicans of trying to push for-profit education. Attorneys general from 20 states and D.C. recently filed a lawsuit after the department announced plans to lay off more than 1,300 of its employees, arguing the job cuts would hinder core functions of the agency. And civil rights groups say Trump's move is unconstitutional.